Since you have now successfully created your first logo from a template, it's now time to design one from scratch. You need to make sure that you choose the correct dimensions. In terms of aspect ratio, I recommend that you go for a square, and for resolution I would go for 4000 by 4000 pixels. In that way, your logo will look nice and sharp when you export it. Alright, when you're in the editor, you can either start with text or with elements. I personally recommend for beginners to start with text. In that way, you've already got a nice base structure where you can build your logo around. If you need some more information about different font characteristics, I recommend that you rewatch the typography lecture. But generally, you should just make sure that the font works with your brand. In this case, it's a security company, so it's best to choose a heavy and robust looking font. After some trial and error, I decided to go with this one. Now it's time to create your logo by adding elements. If you prefer a more traditional look, just choose elements that can be directly associated with the company. In this case, it would be a lock. You can position your element wherever you want. I decided to put it on the top. But you can of course also put it on the side, or even implement it into the font. Just make sure that when you look at the whole logo, it has a unified look. Spacing is very important too. Make sure that your font is properly spaced and does not have bad kerning. Otherwise, your logo will appear highly unprofessional. Alright, so that would be the first version of the logo. Very simple and straightforward. A logo like this is perfect for a small shop or company that operates in local areas. But if you want to create a strong brand identity, you need to add some uniqueness to it. You can make your logo more unique by using additional elements to modify certain parts of the font. Now this may sound difficult at first, but actually it's not. All you need is some time and willingness to experiment. Remember, visualizing the company's message should be your highest priority. My fantasy company focuses on home security. That's why I decided to look for some elements. Then I noticed that the shape of a house is quite like the shape of the letter A. So I tried to replace the letter A in the font with the house. And after a few tiny spacing adjustments, it ended up looking great. To further refine and unify the logo, I decided to add a line at the bottom. I think the final result is awesome. And yes, you can always further improve on tiny details. For example, we could have rounded up the edges of the house icon. But since this logo was created in under 10 minutes, I think this is close to perfect. Now let's talk about your individual editing process. The more designs you create, the better you get at it. The best way to practice is to simply create a few logos and brand concepts. It really doesn't matter if the companies are real. The general purpose here is to improve your speed and your general skill set. After making about 10 designs, you will notice that you get better at choosing the right shapes and colors. You will also start developing your own style. You could basically say that this is a natural process that just takes some time to fully develop. Here you can see a time lapse on how I create all of my text style logos in Canva. I always start with some plain, simple text, then I start to choose an appropriate font, and only when these two components are absolutely perfect, I choose the colors. That's what I define as step 1 of logo creation in Canva. Now I've already created a solid foundation that makes it way easier to find matching elements. Step number 2 is the most fun one. Because there, your creativity takes away all of the hard work. It's about finding and combining the right elements. The possibilities here are literally endless. You can integrate elements into the font, play around with different shapes and gradients, and develop a totally unique design structure. After creating a few logos, you will get really good at this, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The final one is step number 3. There it's all about refinement. The goal is to correct all of the little hidden imperfections. For example, slightly offset elements, color imperfections, and overhanging edges. You also need to make sure that your logo appears as a unified design. All the different elements need to flawlessly blend into each other and strongly represent the brand. This doesn't have to take long, but it's essential if you want to have the perfect end result. If you follow this path and adjust a few tiny things to your preferences, I guarantee you will have success. I wanted to end this lecture by showing you that a good logo doesn't need to be complex. The most recognizable logos in our world are actually pretty simple. What counts is visualizing the company's message in a direct but yet minimalistic way. Here is what I mean. This logo right here only consists out of text. It is very minimalistic but yet professional. And you can only achieve this effect by carefully choosing and positioning the fonts. And if you then see the logo in action, you will be even more amazed by it. The same goes for these two logos. They are very simple and only consist out of text and one carefully placed element. So you see, it's more about the general composition, and not about smashing a bunch of elements together in order to create a complex logo. When it comes to branding, communication should be direct and not overcomplicated. Alright guys, I really hope you learned a lot in this lecture. I'm super curious about your logos. So if you want, feel free to send me them and I'll make sure to check them out and leave you some feedback. See you in the next one.